this. It says we are live. We are live. Let's double check. All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Midwest Elevation, to another Tuesday Conversations to Raise the Collective Consciousness. I am your host, Renee Zukin, and I am super stoked about today's conversation. And I will introduce my guest in just a moment, but I want to welcome you all. Let us know if you are here watching live, and let us know if you are on the hashtag replay. I just always feel so silly when I do that. Maybe I don't have to, but that's okay. Yeah. So we are here every Tuesday at 4:30 Central to have these conversations to raise the collective consciousness. We do this. I interview healers, teachers, creatives, all the people doing the inner work to see the outer change that we all want to see in the world. And I'm super excited to introduce you to my dear friend Jai today. Jai and I actually met, was it like 5 or 6 years ago, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
At a workshop. It was it was a workshop. It was a writing workshop, but it was also a real sort of digging deep into some things that were holding us back from our fullest expression. And it just really opened my eyes to a whole new world. My life certainly flipped upside down, not because of your workshop necessarily, but of all the deep inner work that I was able to do through writing. And so I'm so grateful to you and our friend Alicia who put on the workshop together. So it's been a long time that writing has been a real catalyst for healing and for change for me, which is why some of the next things that I'm working on these days, if you've heard me talk about the Rebel Writers Workshop, this is my newest baby, and I'm so excited to be doing these workshops and using writing to heal. Our next one is coming up on April 12th, so make sure you catch the info on that. It is here, that info is here somewhere in Midwest Elevation, but I'll remind you. But today's not about me. Today is about us. So let me introduce you to Jai. Let me get her slide up here because I just love the joy that is present in this picture and in nature. We are going to be talking today about staying rooted in traumatic times and how beautiful that, that I love that your picture in nature and the rootedness of the trees, no coincidences here. This is how it rolls. So Jai has dedicated her life to healing the change makers of the world gratefully. With over 27 years of study and experience about indigenous ways, world religions, and metaphysics, she is here to serve, guide, and empower. She specializes in helping women leaders to learn the skills that will lift their vibration, right? Midwest Elevation. Heal their wounds, reclaim their gifts, and find their energetic rhythms and empowerment. Jai is committed to healing, educating, and creating space for the sacred within highly sensitive and empathic women leaders, educators, activists, so that they may find the flow between being a warrior and a healer. Oh, I just love that. Just love that. She is an energy practitioner, Reiki master and teacher, certified Akashic reader, psychic medium, death midwife, and of course, a mama. Welcome, Jai. I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks for having me. It's a good excuse to chat. You, one of my favorite peeps. So thanks for reminding me of our circle. That was a long time ago, but such an empowering place to be with all the different peeps that were involved in that. And so I love that you're doing more of your own writing to heal, because I agree with you. We have stories. We need to express them. And just by doing that, we release a lot, and it's good. So I remember the one workshop I went to of yours, the elephant in the room.
Oh, yeah, swearing in elephants.
I love that. Well, swearing in elephants, perfect. So I have an excuse today if I swear, right? Because you taught me to.
I do. Swearing is it has its time, its place, and its purpose, and it can empower you in just the right way.
Oh, it can. It so can. You know, it's funny thinking about that today. I reminded of a story with Alicia, and I went to go see Cheryl Strayed, wrote Wild. She was at the Prairie Book Light, whatever you call it, Prairie Lights.
Realize, yes.
Yes, and I asked her specifically about cussing, because she cusses a lot.
Right.
And she had a great answer. She said, you know, words have energy, and there's an appropriate time to use appropriate words because they fulfill that energy that needs to. She's like, I wouldn't say the F-bomb in church necessarily, but there's appropriate times. So yes, I encourage cussing as well.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, funny. Well, if anybody watching, so one of the, I should say, one of the, what's that?
But did you not tell me all the rules?
No, no, no.
Okay.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say that. So a couple weeks ago, I did a writing workshop for identifying blocks, and I used that same swearing writing prompt exercise, the fuck it exercise, right? This. I gotta trademark this or something. I don't know. But because of that power, because of the power behind those words, exactly what you were just saying and what Cheryl was just saying about how sometimes there's, it's the only right word for the moment.
Exactly. Agreed. Yeah. And it's, part of the exploration of all this is to find the words and to decide if they're right for you to say and not be judged by what others want you to say or not say. So
Right.
there's power in just claiming your words. That's why they call it spelling. It's powerful. I wish I could have coined that, but I didn't. I can't remember who said that, but isn't that great?
Right, because why else would it be spelling?
Exactly. Not sure. Not sure.
Holy cats, girl.
I know, right? You could use that in your teaching.
Right?
Yes.
For sure. Well, we're just here. We're having a conversation today. Staying rooted in traumatic times. We don't have to tell anybody here what the last year has been like. Even, on a global scale, but also so many different personal stressors and grief. Different for everybody, but certainly a collective grief. And so, yeah, staying rooted has not been easy.
Why not?
Well,
and I asked that back only because what's your definition of rooted?
Sure.
What does it mean? What has gone off kilter because of this storm? Again, there's that imposition of what needs to be rooted and what, this is a time of uprooting a whole bunch of stuff that we thought we had figured out.
Yes.
And, it's like the first part of the year, for me at least, was like, shit, I just planted all this stuff. It's growing roots now. And that just fell over.
Yeah.
And so the grief of letting that go of what we thought we wanted to root and being with that for a while so that the new things can grow, whatever they are, because I went out to my garden today and I'm just kind of picking through all the stuff, from winter and digging out, and you just you look, where are the new babies coming up? What new weeds do I have in my garden? It's fun to go through that process when you think about it as a metaphor. And that's, for me, being rooted is a lot in story and letting the stories evolve and change and finding peace within the story, if possible, once you've got it out and you can look at,
Right. That's really beautiful. And thank you for asking, for pushing back on that first thing I said, because you're absolutely right. Um, it's not to like invalidate, right, the grief or the trouble, but in fact, I think it almost offers more validation that you get to look at what is falling away.
Mm-hmm.
You really have a chance to look at it and decide what you want to do about it, and what else, and what's new that can come up. Um, as things, especially where we are starting to open up a little more, and people are wanting to, oh, let's get back to, and I'm like, there are some things we don't need to go back to.
Exactly. Yeah, pull that weed out of the garden and leave it. Yeah. You're exactly right. I mean, I think it's natural, when we talk about trauma, because that's the other part of this, being rooted in traumatic times. So it's not one or the other. Like when trauma comes, we're naturally going to be always uprooted forever. It's really looking at how do we respond and sustain through trauma, because what I do for a living is dealing with trauma. And so a lot of the times people call me in crisis. And now we're in a collective crisis, as you said. And I love that in its metaphor because it builds empathy. We can all start to not judge each other's crisis too much because we all have our own,
right.
But it also learns or teaches us that we can withstand trauma, that we don't need to keep it at bay. We can't.
Right. You can't avoid it.
Trauma is a fact of life. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think it's teaching us, that this trauma doesn't just go away because now we're trying to get back to normal. We're going to still be unpacking the trauma. And let me just explain how I define trauma, which is when the body is shocked. And so it can be really simple things or severe things. Sure. And if the body is shocked and it's mixed with negative emotion, we stay stuck. And so allowing ourselves to move through it by observing it, by being with it, by giving it words, by just observing it, it shifts and then it does evolve organically, and we don't have to try so hard.
Right.
We all want to figure out, well, what do we do next? And how do we do it? And what's the next steps? And we want all the systems to come down so that we can have this new growth.
Yeah.
Myself included.
Right. Yes.
However, it's providing an opportunity to gain sustainability and resilience during times that are still going to be challenging,
Yeah. Yeah. And you said, as soon as you were talking about like, we all want the systems to drop and the new things to come, and when is it going to be, and having the answers. And if there is anything I have learned more this year, I was already learning it, whether I wanted to or not, but is, the word that just keeps coming back is surrender. And not in the, whatever happens, so I'm not going to do anything kind of way, but a real sort of deeper knowing that we really can't control, a lot.
Yep.
We can't control what other people do. We can't control what other people think or feel. We can't, which isn't to say that we can't have impact, right? That's a totally different thing. We can't control how much time is going to pass until the thing that we want to see come to fruition comes.
Yeah.
We don't know how long it's going to take. And to be okay in the not knowing.
Yeah, that's a lot what I do with people, is teaching them how to be okay with not knowing.
Mm.
And that's another thing why we interrupt trauma and being able to be restored, is that we try to fix it. We try to figure it out. And it's a biological, physiological response, as well as emotional and psychological.
Right.
But some of it doesn't need to be figured out. We just simply need to go through it and observe it. And that's the surrender piece that I think you bring up is important, because we can hear that word, and it, for me, like being a warrior and a healer, like, when does a warrior ever surrender?
Right.
Right. Like I was taught, don't ever surrender.
Right. It's a bad thing. Yeah. You're weak.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about surrender, it often prickles people, and they're like, no, 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 there's still fight.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, what I hear you trying to say is that surrender is observation.
Yeah.
It's taking a step back, looking at the story and seeing, what is my part? What do I have control over? And what don't I?
Mm-hmm.
And letting that go is one of the hardest things that people struggle with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so going into your energetic body, which is, to me, your physiology in your body, it's your nervous system, it's just information.
Yeah.
And you go into that, that's where the surrender piece comes. You don't have to figure it all out right now.
I should be thinking something. I should be thinking differently. I should be. Yeah. It's like,
Right.
it doesn't even exist up here. Well, it does, but
it does, but we've been taught to use that part of our head all the time. Figure it out, do this, figure it out, do that. And so we've just been trained to like use just our right hand, and we forget we have a left hand.
Yeah.
And so the right brain, the mythology, the stories, these symbols, the colors, all that is also in our brain. And so the way I teach meditation is not to silence your mind. Silencing your mind is not gaining observation. Right. That's being basically like dead asleep, or
I was going to say, I'm either asleep, because my mind goes even before I open my eyes.
Right. And so it's not about stopping or shutting that piece down. It's about stepping into other aspects of yourself. And so the body, if you get into the body and start to feel the senses of your body, it starts to calm down, and it gives your brain something to do. It's focusing on something. Oh, what does it feel like to breathe? What does it feel like to move? What does it feel like? And so your brain is not shut off, but it's gone into observation mode. And that's teaching that it's not that you don't have to give up the fight or give up knowing, because when we take those moments, our body, our instincts tell us what we need to know for the next step. So we don't need to know the big picture.
That's it. That's so it.
We just need to know what we're doing in the next 5 freaking minutes. All right. That's all we have to worry about sometimes. Because that will lead us to our bigger and better vision of the world and ourselves. It'll lead us there. And we often forget. It seems so simple. Well, just get into your body. Just take some deep breaths. But literally, your body needs that time to speak to you and tell you what you need to know, what you need to just simply let go of.
Yeah.
And so surrendering into that is something that I teach clients. Faith and spirit and the sixth sense is also very, very important to me. But the 5 senses can bring us to that space of surrender.
Yeah.
We can deal with trauma.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. And I think that idea of being in the body is something that I personally resisted for a long time. And still do. You know, I have to be very, well, mindful, um, because, well, and I don't know why this is coming up and out right now, but we'll just go with it. But like, I don't trust in what my body has to say or what it wants to do necessarily, because I feel like, um, you know, either from, you know, past experience, you know, not being able to trust for whatever reason, but also from the perspective of, you know, a person who has, you know, been handed the gift of anxiety for the, right? There are things that I don't understand their truths. Like, because the mind works so quickly to tell the body something before I even recognize it, that but being in a right or better relationship with the body does in fact heal the anxiety. So it's like, you know,
absolutely, you bring up a perfect point, because it's definitely a trauma response to eject from the body, because your body is telling you you either need to fight, you need to flee, or you're frozen. And if those are all combined at the same time, we disassociate, we leave our bodies. And so the only way we come back in is to about here, right? When we think about it. And so then I tell people to breathe deeply, and they're like, no, you know. And it's also, it's when you're dealing with trauma, you need to approach it very gently. You can't do an extreme. So, you know, when I tell people to breathe, I'm like, don't need to breathe deeply. Just breathe, just think about breathing. And so it's a slow and steady integration back into the body, because when you have anxiety, when you are on hyperarousal, which is what anxiety does to your nervous system, you're constantly being told by your body that you're in threat. Right. That's kind of exactly what we're all going with the pandemic, is that we feel our physiology is always on hyperarousal. And so to just go breathe or just to go take a bath, those things are like, hell no, hell no, hell no. So to approach it with a more gentle and slow and steady, where you're just starting to get back into your body by thinking about what actually feels good in my body right now. What actually feels strong in me, so that you can begin to trust your body in certain ways, right? And that slow and steady practice of learning, you know, to trust your body, to, like we were talking earlier about when you need to sleep. And we often push through, right? Because humans don't deal with trauma as well as other mammals do. Because we interrupt the physiological responses our body needs when we're on hyperarousal. Because we as humans don't like involuntary responses. I want to be in control of when I cry or when I do anything that my body wants to do that I don't want it to do, right? And that scares us. And so that also ejects us from trusting our body. And so by starting to trust the involuntary responses of, I'm really tired and I'm going to rest, or I need to cry right now, I'm going to let those tears out, or I just need to move around because I'm feeling anxious. Trust that, because the body has wisdom to know how to move it out of us. Not just an energetic woo-woo thing. Energy is your physiology, in my opinion. It's the information field that moves around and tells us it's also okay. Yes, because it's smart to have trauma responses, because if there's something attacking us, we need to be able to respond.
Right.
But we don't need to stay in hyperarousal.
Right.
And so learning how to slow and steadily get back into a good relationship with your body, which energy medicine does provide for people, right? It reminds us that, oh, I can feel calm and peaceful in here. No? And by doing that, it also retrains your body so that you start to trust it again.
Mm.
Because our instincts are what will keep us alive. You know? And so it's not either or.
Right.
It's learn, and here's where we get when we're in trauma, is those either ors are very extreme.
Mm-hmm.
And so the goal is to slow and steadily bring it back into balance.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's
You look
beautiful.
like
I'm
you're
like
about
taking it all in.
good. You look very rosy and happy right now.
I am, well, you know, it's like, and of course, I'm speechless. I just, by the way, there are a whole bunch of hawks flying in circles right outside my window, which I
Oh,
know you will appreciate.
yes, because Hawk came to visit me right before our session today.
Interesting.
Beautiful.
Well, and yes, the first time Hawk came to visit me was at your house during our Reiki training.
Good medicine.
It is good medicine. And I mean, you know, Jay, you have so much wisdom. Um, and you know, obviously you and I could chat for hours about all of the things. What I appreciate most about what you have just said is that it really the, it really lands us in the physical world.
Mm.
That, you know, there's no denying, right, that we are here, we are humans, we are on earth, the physical world is our life.
Mm.
And for such a long time, you know, as somebody who has a deep love for energy medicine and all things, you know, science and energy and, you know, ethereal and the mystery and all that. And I don't say it, you know, because I love it and I love everything about it. But when all you do is grasp at that, it's missing that point. And I think that's what, you know, you were really saying, that it's not, nothing is either or. We really have to be in this physical body. We really have to be, you know, with all the things here on earth, and all that other stuff coexists with us and provides the wisdom if we listen to our bodies.
Yeah, I love that you deduce it to that, because you're exactly right. And that's why rooted, you know, being radical, to me, the definition, there's a definition of the Latin, is rooted.
Mm.
And yes, somebody who's studied energy medicine and metaphysics and all the stuff for 30 years, and really, because I wanted to get out of here. It's like,
right? No,
it's hard.
yes,
Get me the freak out of here, man.
life
Like,
is hard.
you know, it's
Yeah.
more fun too out there and all that. And yet we do have purpose, and not in a wish-washy, grandiose way.
Right.
We all have simple purpose every moment, to be here now, not to be cliche, but as you said, cliches have truth.
Yep.
I've been repeating that since I saw you post that on Facebook, because it's so true. You know, and I love that you were talking about Hawk, because Hawk takes that observation, you know, point, but also it's leadership. And so, you know, when we just leave, we're not really owning our ability to lead in the here and now and in community. Because that's the other thing, that trauma, in order to heal, it's not just all about this stuff. We need people to heal.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Co-regulation is essential for healing. Telling stories, listening to stories, all that. And so being here in our body, not up in the energy, you know, ether, is the point. That's the purpose. And so it is sad to see how many of us have ejected from that wisdom, because we're all searching for intuition, but really our instincts, they're so freaking smart, and they tell it to you soon and quick. And, there's not a lot of mystery about it. You just know.
Yes.
Just know.
You do.
And that's being rooted, in my opinion, rooted in yourself, rooted down into who you are here and now, but also maintaining that humbleness of the vastness of it all, right? And then, like a tree, you bridge those two together by being able to serve your community, your family, this earth that is demanding our respect, demanding that we pay attention. And instinctually, we all are here to survive. Instinctually, we know what the right moves are for politics, for economics, for, ecology. We all know. And so if we can all get out of here more and practice being in our bodies, we'll know what to do in the next step. Like it always reminds me of good detectives, right? Good detectives are the most pragmatic people right? They're very skeptical. But they also talk about instinct all the time. I just knew it.
I just knew it.
Right. So practicing that will keep us rooted while we go through these transformations, and not to be so scared of trauma. I think that's another thing that we're learning, not to be so scared of it, that we can resolve it. We're not stuck with it. And our body actually knows how to move it and heal it. And so do our stories.
I'm glad you mentioned radical, because I want to make sure that we get all our folks watching your Stay Radical website. I love, if you want to just give us like the mini version of why you chose Stay Radical for your website. And what that, you mentioned, that radical, it has to do with rooted, and how that attaches to the work that you do.
That's a good question. Radical for me is a word that can have two interpretations, one being kind of negative. Like if you go against the grain, oh, you're just a radical and you need to like simmer down over there. And then this idea of being rooted in oneself. And so I was just thinking how those two, I love dichotomies, and those two seem to be dichotomous. And so it's kind of reclaiming that word and saying, even though you take choices in your life that others or mainstream society may deem radical or off the cuff, wrong, that actually by doing that, you're maintaining your rooted self and you're being who you are. And to make choices based on that, and not to be afraid of making choices that others disagree with or challenge you on. And, that's my hope to give to women and children, honestly, is to give them that sense of self so that they can make radical choices in their life, extreme choices in their life, and feel not so scared about doing that or traumatized by that.
That's really beautiful. There's a freedom in it. And we're not talking about radical decisions that are harmful or, like, that's the thing. I think people turn to those kinds of rebellious, I'll take my rebel word, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be something that's bad. Right. And in fact, if you're not listening to your intuition and you're not, taking care of and respecting your own desires and purpose and that, then you can turn to making those decisions that end up being hurtful.
Yeah.
Because feel so bad.
Yeah, you just get yourself in a whole big mess because you're trying to figure, right?
Just embrace it. Embrace your radical.
That's right. Exactly. There's lots of ways to be radical. You got to just find your path,
I love it. Well, I hate to, well, I'm going to cut off our lives, but I don't have to cut off our meeting.
Right on.
But I am so glad you were here. This conversation has been incredible. And we will for sure get the link to your website out to all our watchers, listeners out there who are interested in perhaps doing some energy work, doing some trauma work with you. You are a beautiful soul, and I am so grateful to know
No.
you.
Well, I appreciate it. And I just love you to pieces. So this has been a joy to just sit here and chat with you. So thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks, everybody out there watching. We will see you next week when we will be back with another conversation to raise the collective conscious. We'll see you then.